guys, Anamortis here. Time for our latest and greatest video. This time, and I'm going to admit this is kind of for me, this time is going to be the Rocky Linux mdadm, I don't know how to actually pronounce that, RAID shroot installation. This is to install from the command line entirely a Rocky mdadm, and we're going to do RAID 5 for your use. So this is hopefully going to be really useful. I know it's going to be useful to me. This was interesting to set up. It's going to be my home server, definitely. And, you know, we can uh, apply to this. You can also use this method to just do a regular root install. I'll be highlighting ways you can change the installation if you just want to do like a desktop installation or something. If you need a powerful workstation. I am a big fan of Rocky. I think the work they're doing to be not only a complete nonprofit, but also to share Red Hat's contributions with the rest of the community at large is great, especially since the end of CentOS. So to get started, just kind of rolling into this, this is gonna look a lot like the Fedora installation, because, you know, Fedora is based on Red Hat, and this is also based on Red Hat. This is essentially Red Hat 9. So we'll do the set enforce 04 SE Linux to bring it down. And then next, we need to log in. So we'll do this, turn ourselves into the root user. I'll clear the window. Now we're going to show all of our disks. Now again, this is going to be a RAID 5. So I have here, if you look at my mouse, we have the SDA, B, C, D, E, and E. We'll be setting this up so that way they run off the UUIDs for these disks. Each one is about 50 gigs. You can set this up however you need to set it up based on your disk options. RAID 5 requires at least 4 disks. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. Requires at least 3 disks. We'll be using 4 and go from there. And then we're also going to use XFS, since this is going to be a software RAID, which is assumedly for your home server. So first thing first, we're going to do an fdisk dev SDA. This is going to be our root partition. This is where the OS itself is going to live. And we need to make, let me see, we need 3 partitions. So first, we're going to need our usual EFI partition, which is 512 megs, type 1. Then we need a swap partition. I am going to make this just 2 gigs for the purpose of this video, and then we'll change the type. If you do not know what number that is, you can push L. It'll pull up a list, and here it's way down at 19. So we'll go with 19. And then finally, we need a root partition, so we'll just do 3, and then defaults all the way down, and then W to write. Now that we have our first disk partitioned, we need to partition our other disks. So again, we'll do an lsblk. I do realize now I have an extra disk on here we're not going to need for RAID 5. So if you need a RAID 1 or a RAID 10, or actually I guess a RAID 10, you're going to need this extra disk. We're not going to actually touch SDE. But for now, we'll partition fdisk dev SDB. G for GPT label, new, 1, first, last, defaults. Now we need to change the type to a Linux RAID. So that's 29. And then W to write. Then we need to do it to C and D. G. Then new, 1, first, last, type, 29. And then write. And then same deal. GPT, new, 1, last, type 29, Linux RAID, W to write, and now we have our 3 RAID 5 disks ready to go. Next up is the mdadm command. Sorry about the pronunciation on this. If I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, I do apologize. We're going to go mdadm create dev md, and we'll call it md5. Level equals 5. That's for RAID 5. If you were doing a RAID 0, it would be 0. Feel free to check the manual for other options. And then RAID devices equals 3. And then we're going to list those names. Dev SDB1, Dev SDC1, and Dev SDD1. So now we have our RAID 5 started. Then we need to, let's see, so LSB, as you can see now we have a 100 gig RAID 5. What happened to that other 50 gigs? Well, a RAID 5, if you're looking at it, you sets aside one of the disks for storing striping. In case one of the disks fails, you can rebuild it from the other two. This gives you a little more space than you get with a RAID 1 or a RAID 10. For a disk-to-disk ratio, as I understand it, it's a little slower, but when I make my server, I'm going to be using RAID 5 personally. So now we need to make our file systems. So first, we got to go back to SDA, and we need to make fs vfat dev sda1. Then we need to make our swap, make swap dev sda2. Whoops, just typoed that. And then finally we need make fs ext. We're going to use ext4 for our root partition. It's just fast, it works well, and I don't see a reason. Plus 2, you can modify, bring the size up and down. Now for our MD5, we're going to do a makefs.xfs for dev MD5. Note that we are using MD5, not these SDB labels like we would in Butterfuss. mdadm, you have a whole separate label for it, so we're going to run with that. We'll just give this a second to process. Okay, now that everything is partitioned and good to go, we are going to install our operating system. First things first, we need to mount. We're going to go ahead and mount dev sda3 to mnt. Then we're going to do a make dir-p mount boot EFI. And then we're going to mount dev sda1 mount boot EFI. Then, now that we've cleared, we're going to go ahead and set up our RAID 5 to a folder on our RAID called, we're going to make a separate folder called server RAID. This will be where our whole server will be managed from. We want this to be a separate folder so it's easy to bring in and out. It's not impacted by what we do on home. And, you can store your files there and not have to think twice about it. So we'll do an LSBOK again, mount dev md5 / server RAID. That'll just take a moment. Again, MD5 RAID 5s are pretty complex. Oh, how did I mess that up? Oh, I forgot the MNT. So let's do that. Okay, now everything is mounted. Everything's good to go. We're probably not going to actually do much with the rest of this server RAID video. I am going to show you how to configure it so that way you can make sure it actually runs. Then, though, we need to install our operating system. So the next part is release ver equals current version of Rocky is 9.1. Install root equals /mnt group install core. Forgot the word root. I am typoing like crazy for this video. This is a fairly fast process with Rocky. So, just when it asks, say yes. When it goes through this, it's going to also ask to make sure that you want to import the keys. We'll go ahead and do that. But in the interim, we're just going to let this go ahead. Then we'll go ahead and clear, and then we will do the usual and then we copy our resolve.conf. So we have networking. Now we're going to set up the system variables. You do it this way on a Red Hat style system instead of editing files and such like you do on Arch or something. So it's systemd first boot root equals mnt to tell it, hey, this is going to be this internal system. Time zone, you can get the time zone in user share zone info. Mine is capitalize. York. Host name, I will just call this Rocky Video, and then set up machine ID. And now we can shroot. And we've shrooted in. I'll clear. Okay, we've shrooted into our system, and it's time to. There's some various ways to install a Rocky system using more up-to-date kernels, using more access to software. I'm going to keep this basic. I'll let you research that on your own. So we're going to use the stable kernel and so forth. But I do want to enable the CRB server. Oh, that's repo list. This lists your repos. There is one other official repo. Config manager enable CRB. Then we'll do a DNF update just to get that installed. Everything's downloaded. Then we need our language pack for English. It is DNF install glib c lang pack en. And then I want to make sure mdadm is installed since we're doing a RAID system. Then we need to do our systemd first boot locale equals en us.utf-8. That's how you set it with Rocky. And then we'll set our system password. And then next, we need to configure mdadm. So that means we need to create an etc mdadm conf. Mdadm has a command for this, detail scan, and we'll do etc mdadm.conf. If you recall, the name of our OS actually, our host name is Rocky Video. This is actually pretty important. We're going to take this, and because the mdadm conf is generated with the live CD's name, we're going to go vi etc mdadm.conf. As you can see here, here's all the info about our array. I'm going to change the name from localhost live to the Rocky Video. We leave :5, and then the UUID is all of those partitions have taken this UUID. So it'll say, hey, when you're booting, assemble these into a RAID 5. Then we need to do one more command. We have that assembled. Now we need to set up our Fstab. So cp proc mounts etc Fstab. We need to change it chmod 744 etc Fstab. And now we need to do our blkid. Let's go first with SDA. And we're just going to, as is custom, we're going to go into here and just put those UUIDs in there in case it bounces around our order on boot, which Linux does do that. So to get started, let's first get rid of all this extraneous stuff below the dev lines. We want to keep the temp fs line. And then we'll do a :w to write, since we're in Vim. I have the SDA1 UUID, so we'll just highlight or delete that, remove the quotations. That's good to go, :w to write, and then Shift-ZZ. Finally, we're going to do our SDA3. So that is this one. This is for our root partition. Delete out the dev reference. Shift-ZZ to save. Let's add our swap partition too. Why not? Copy. Oh, come on, you. Copy. Back into Fstab. We'll add this to the bottom. So Control-Shift-Z, delete A, swap, defaults 0, 0. Shift-C-Z. Okay, now we need to put the mdadm RAID in there. So we'll do grep md, md5. We're going to take this UUID right here. So grab this. Copy vi fstab. Go down to the MD5 line. We do want to make sure that we're using that UUID just because Linux has a habit of changing changing names of stuff. Already went over that. It still applies even to a RAID system. Now that we have that done, I'll just clear. We're going to install the kernel. There is a really cool system called lrepo. We're not going to use that today. lrepo is an archive containing the Community Enterprise Linux repository. It has a repository for an updated kernel called the ML kernel, mainline, I guess. And Rocky Linux has a 6.2 kernel if you use that. Now, for the sake of this video, we're going to stick with stable stuff. So I'm just going to do dnf install kernel. Yeah, we'll just do that. Why? This takes a sec. It has to... Oh, it had a little issue with downloading. But everything went out okay. It has to download. It's got to run these scriptlets. Scriptlets take a minute, so just hold on. Now that we got the kernel installed, we just need to install grub. So dnf install grub2 EFI x64 dn grub2 EFI x64 modules shim and EFI boot manager. Yes. So go ahead and download and install really quick. Then we need a grub2 make config -o boot EFI Rocky grub.cfg. From here, I'm going to say let's just enable, control enable network manager, so we have networking. Here in the Fedora video, I would change SE Linux to passive or permissive because this is going to be a server. We're going to do enforcing. But for the sake of this video and because I just simply don't want to have any problems, your results may vary. We're going to change this just for now. So go etc sysconfig SE Linux, and we're going to take enforcing. We're going to change DWA permissive shift-CZ. That's it. Exit umount A, and we can reboot. So let's go ahead and do that. There you have it. We have our fully installed Rocky Linux server installation. As you can see, RAID 5 is set up. Root, home. We can add users. We have, as you can see, there is a server RAID folder right there for our server that's on the separate drives that we can manage and partition. We have our home folder, so then we'll just user add. And then we'll go I'll add myself. Oh, nope. And then exit. Do a sudo DNF update. And we can, from here, we can install a desktop. If we want to, we can run this headless if it's a server. So, if it's Rocky DNF, I would say group install GNOME to do a desktop installation. Otherwise, you can just run this on, I believe it has SSH installed. You know, set up your SSH, your firewall, you know, whatever you want to do. Some additional tips I can provide. There is, after you get your desktop installed, there is also the RPM Fusion repository, so I recommend this if you need just a couple of additional programs. This is installed the same way you do the kernel, the lrepo kernel. The RPM Fusion, you just do sudo dnf install RPM Fusion free release. This includes some additional software, including stuff like XFCE, which is not included in the default Rocky installation. So, you know, that should do it. So, you know, guys, if you like, enjoy, and thanks for watching. I'll put up a write-up of this online pretty soon. I will note, if you want to contact me, I can be reached on Mastodon. I'll put my Mastodon address here on the screen. But, you know, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I'll be creative. Maybe an Arch video. I have never done an Arch install. It's so much more straightforward, just because it's made to do this. But anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks a lot. Bye.